Oh my God, was I muted? Oh, I hate this. I hate this thing.
Now, how do you tell the difference between something like that that looks like a band and something that is a very faint band?
Well, first of all, this is right in between two lanes. And samples are loaded into the lane, and you would see a distinct banding pattern within that well where they're loaded. Um, as I'm holding up a gel to demonstrate for you, this is where the wells, where samples are loaded. Can you see this? And there's a separation between where each sample's loaded. That blip right in there is a diffuse, smeary blip in the gel, and it could either be, like I said, it could be just where the gel's been darkened right in that area, and when it was photoed, it was captured by that. But it's definitely not a band. It's not a distinct thickened line.
That's not something you expect to see, is it?
Well, you wouldn't expect to see it, but it's not anything that concerns me.
It indicates that something is going on there that shouldn't be going on there. Isn't that accurate?
No, I think that's inaccurate. Accurate to say that.
Now, we describe this as having a band-like appearance. Would you concur with that? Looks like it could have been a band?
Yeah, it has there's some darkening in that region of the gel.
And it's at it's at a level on the ladder different from any of the people that you've tested in connection with this case.
Correct.
And it's, I believe it's a 15 allele, isn't it? If that is a band, that band-like appearance is a band, it's a 15.
It's not a band. It's Judge.
Well,
What?
If you're saying it's a band, then that would be in between that 14 repeat and the 16 repeat. So that would be the 15 repeat.
This might be a good time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our break. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. We'll be in recess for 15 minutes.
Ms. Montgomery, I just want to clarify that the band-like thing down here that we've been talking about corresponds to the lane at the top for the substrate control, does it not? 50C,
Yes,
and for a Bundy drop.
correct.
Take that down.
Well, I'm sorry. Actually, you should also include that extraction blank in the second or in the lane next to the ladder, because since it's right in between those two lanes, you need to address both those lanes.
So it could be either one, correct?
Well, I mean, that little artifact's right in between the two.
Now, the extraction blank shouldn't show anything either, should it?
Correct.
Okay, take it down. Now, I want to ask you a couple of questions about the D1S80 system in general that you talked about on direct. You indicated that it was a discrete allele system, correct?
Correct.
And you indicated that it was, everybody matches some of the bands on the ladder.
No, I don't believe I stated it that way.
What did you state with respect to the ladder encompassing all the possible alleles?
Okay, the ladder is a composite ladder, and that means that from the 14 allele and then the 15 through the 41 allele are present on that. There are alleles that are greater than the 41, and there's the possibility that a 15 allele has been seen, but it's very rare, and so it's not added into the ladder.
So there are alleles in this system that don't show up on this ladder, correct? Because the ladder's too small.
There are some very rare alleles, like I said, greater than 41, and then also the 15 allele that are not on this ladder.
And those are alleles that could be present in someone's DNA that would not show up in this system, correct?
No, that's not correct. They would not have a corresponding ladder allele to call them. If there was something greater than the top 41 allele, you would see a band up there. And I have seen bands greater than 41, and this is very rare. And so anything that's greater than 41 is called greater than 41, and it can't be lined up with any allele ladder. And it happens so infrequently that the company doesn't feel it's necessary to have ladder alleles up in that region, which I agree with.
But the point, you indicated that alleles don't run off the gel. There are alleles in this system that do run off the ladder in the sense that you can't measure them, correct? With the ladder.
Correct, I just stated that, yes.
And now when you say a discrete allele system, is a good analogy there comparing a digital watch with an analog watch that goes around? A discrete allele system is like a digital watch, meaning that you're either at 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, you can't be in between? Is that what you mean by discrete allele?
You could use that analogy.
And a clock, for instance, is more like an RFLP system where you can have alleles spread out from the top to the bottom of the gel. You're not going to be at discrete positions.
Continuous. Or another analogy would be shoe size. When you go in to buy shoes, they have 8.5, 9, 9.5, but you might be in between that 8.5 and 9. So for RFLP, that's how RFLP is addressed. Whereas with D1S80, each person would fit perfectly into that.
And that would be because that everybody who is a 25 has the same sequence of DNA at that location as anybody else that's a 25.
Well, they have the same number of repeats. So an individual that's a 25 would have 20 repeats, or an individual that's a 25 would have 25 continuous repeats of that particular sequence. There can be subtle variation, and an individual that would be an 18 would have 18 continuous repeats of that region.
Well, when you say there can be subtle variations, what you're saying is that there can be people who show up as a 25, for instance, that have a different sequence as someone else that shows up as a 25, correct?
Oh, yes, that's possible. What we're looking at is length differences. We're not looking at
Everybody
sequence differences
has
with this
differences
system.
in DNA. Dumbass.
So two people that come up as a 25 would match in your system, but if they had a different sequence, they are different people, aren't they?
Yes, that's true.
So your system does not have the ability, even though you call it a discrete allele system, to identify precisely the sequence in a particular band.
Right, we're looking at length differences.
That's not what they're looking at.
And unlike PCR DQ alpha, which does identify specific sequences of DNA, correct?
Correct.
So this, in a sense, is this aspect of the system is closer to the RFLP system, where you're estimating sequences, in a sense, correct?
Well, we're not estimating sequences. We're not looking at the sequence. We're looking at the length differences between individuals, how many repeats they have. It's a 16 base pair repeat. So an individual that's an 18 has 18 of these 16 base pair repeats. And they would have a repeat sequence that's, say, this long, whereas an individual that's a 25 would have repeat sequences that are even longer. The same repeat sequences, the same number of repeats, but just a different length.
The point is, different alleles would come up as the same 25, 24, or whatever, and they'd be different alleles, wouldn't they?
If there is a sequence difference between two individuals, they can run to the same position, but it's the length difference we're looking at, not the sequence difference.
Now, there's also reports in the literature about bands in the D1S80 system not lining up correctly with the ladder, correct?
That's correct.
And there have been reports in the literature of bands going to a place on the ladder that's different from what the true sequence is, correct?
Going to a place in the ladder different than the true...
I'm sorry.
Repeating your question to myself. If there's a sequence difference, it's possible that there could be just a very subtle variation, but it'll still line up with the ladder, the composite ladder allele that's adjacent to it, provided in the Roche kit.
Well, the literature indicates that there are situations where it's so far out of alignment with the ladder that it can be confused with the band above it.
Sustain with first question.
Are you aware of the literature that talks about the mobility of bands being such that you can mistype which rung of the ladder you're on because the band is somewhere in the middle?
Yes, that was early on during the development of the system, and what happened is some of the laboratories were trying to use their conventional serology.
Your Honor, I'm going to object as being non-responsive at this point.
Sustain. Restate your question, Counsel. Mobility of bands.
I think she answered with the first part of her answer. I'm satisfied with the first part.
All right.
That was an explanation,
No,
Did you read it back? I think you'll see it's an explanation.
Counsel, you can cover that on redirect. Proceed.
Now, this system also has a characteristic that if samples are degraded, you can lose bands, correct?
You could lose your entire, you could get no results with degraded samples, yes.
You can also selectively lose bands, can't you?
At very, very low levels, it's unusual to lose just
Is that a
one.
yes?
Objection, that's already necessary.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
You can lose, well, let me rephrase it. The ladder that's in the D1S80 system comprises fragment lengths that go from about, what, 300 base pairs up to a couple thousand maybe?
It ranges from a little under 400 base pairs up to over 800 base pairs.
And when a sample degrades, it generally starts to break down. The larger fragments get broken up first. There still may be shorter fragments while the degradation process is going on, correct?
Well, it's a random act that's occurring, the degradation of DNA, and that's just cutting at various locations on the genome.
So you're understanding that when degradation occurs and DNA fragments are cut up, they're cut up randomly in the sense that, well, let me rephrase that. When you start chopping up the DNA, you lose.
All right, let's have it quiet in the courtroom, please.
When you start chopping up the DNA, it gets cut into successively smaller fragments, correct?
Yes, it does.
And as it degrades, if it fully degrades, you may not see any bands at all, correct?
Correct.
And as it degrades further, the bands that are longer, that represent longer sequences, you no longer can see, correct?
That's correct.
So you can lose the upper bands of a genotype, for instance. If somebody is an 1830, the Perkin-Elmer AMP Flip D1S80 kit manual, are you not?
The product insert?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
And that talks about one of the problems of this system being, one of the interpretation problems, that you may lose larger bands with a degraded sample, does it not?
That calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Let me show you, well, let me ask you, are you aware? Let me show you. Are you familiar with that kit insert?
Yes, I am.
And is that what you have in your hands?
And yes, it is.
And do you rely on that in performing the test that you perform?
Yes, this was, third amplification conditions are used in our laboratory for our analysis.
Please look at page 18, section 8.3.1. You ever read that section before?
Yes, I have.
Would you agree that that says that you may lose larger bands if a sample is degraded?
Yeah, what it states is that when you have a single banded pattern, that your results should be interpreted with caution. The company has also done some follow-up research in which they've published a paper in May of
Can I
19...
interject? This is not responsive.
That would, all right, proceed.
And wouldn't you agree that the kit insert also tells you that some alleles don't align up with the ladder? I'm referring to 8.3.2, right below that.
Yes, that's true.
And does that indicate that there are a couple of reasons why that might happen as well? And that is,
That calls for hearsay.
Oh, well.
are you familiar with the section that I'm talking about, 8.3.2?
Yes.
And that gives several reasons why you might have bands that don't line up the way they're supposed to with the ladder, correct?
Yes, and these are subtle shifts that they're referring to in this section.
Now, the kit also is warranted for amplification of 2.5 nanograms of DNA or more, correct?
Yes, they state in here that they guarantee results with 2.5 nanograms of DNA.
And many of the tests that you ran in this case were on amounts far less than that, correct? Or I should say components of mixtures.
Yes, we amplified some samples down to 1 nanogram.
Now, the D1S80 system is less informative than the RFLP system because it has fewer alleles. Would you agree with that?
Well, we're looking at one region on the D1S80 system, whereas with RFLP, we're looking at various regions, as Dr. Cotton and Mr. Sims discussed.
Now, let me break it down then. You're only looking at one location on the genome,
Correct.
one place in the DNA. With RFLP, with a single probe, you're also looking at one location in the DNA, correct?
Correct.
And with RFLP, however, you can have many different alleles, 60, 70, 80 different alleles for a given probe, can you not?
Sure, yes, you can.
And in the D1S80 system, you have a fewer number of possible alleles, correct?
Correct.
So there's less variation among people in the D1S80 system than in the RFLP system because there's fewer possible alleles that you could find in people, correct?
Yes, by comparing D1S80 to RFLP profiles.
Now, the 24 allele is extremely common, is it not?
Yes, the 24 allele is one of the more common alleles.
In fact, over a third of the Caucasian population will have that, correct? Approximately?
Yes, I believe approximately 30% will have, within their genotype, a 24 or an 18 allele.
And that makes this system, in this particular case where both Mr. Simpson and Mr. Goldman have 24 alleles, makes it less informative than if they had more rare alleles, correct?
Well, with Mr. Goldman, he's a 24 homozygote. With Mr. Simpson, you need to look at the other allele that goes along with that 24 allele.
My question is, when you have a 24 allele, it's a less informative system than if you have a more rare allele, correct? Because you can't narrow it down as far in terms of the potential contributors.
Correct. If you had two rare alleles, then
It'd be better.
more informative. Right.
And the 18 allele, Nicole Brown-Simpson is an 18-18, that is also a very common allele, is it not?
Correct. By very common, as I just stated a few sentences back, that between the 18 and the 24 alleles, you'll see this in one or that allele in approximately 60% of the population, either the 18 or the 24. But then you also look at the other allele that goes with the individual.
In fact, well, if we do that with 18-18, that's actually a fairly common genotype, is it not? 6% of the population has it, Caucasian population?
Oh, I'd have to refer to my notes for the exact
Why don't you do that?
frequency. Yes, and 1818 occurs in approximately 6% of the Caucasian population.
So of 100 people, you would expect there to be 6 people that would have that combination, Caucasians.
Approximately 6 out of 100.
Okay. And that, because that allele is involved, that's much less informative than if you had a rarer genotype.
Yes, if you had a rarer one, then you'd have less occurrence in the population.
And the fact that Mr. Goldman shares an allele with Mr. Simpson makes it even less informative because there may be some difficulty in assessing who's responsible for the 24 allele. Would you agree with that?
You're talking about mixtures now?
Yes.
And would it be, I'm sorry, could you restate that?
Because there's an allele in common, that makes it more difficult for you to separate components of a mixture because
It's
there's one allele that two people
a
have in common.
ladder.
Would you agree with that?
So that
Correct.
allele matches with another one.
Can I
It
ask you to refer
looks
to page
like
91 of your notes?
it looks like right down. Okay, it looks like Marcia comes back shortly, very shortly, maybe today, I think. But it looks like it's Marcia against Shaq
You have that in
I'm
front of you?
afraid I'm going
for
to
a
lose all of them.
bit,
Okay.
and there.
Okay.
June
Now, do you and Mr.
6th.
Sims and the other people in your lab use the same standards to decide whether something is a hint versus a trace versus a C minus versus a C?
As it
We're
pertains
on May
to D1S80?
23rd. Or almost done with May 23rd.
Yes, there's no standard technology as to hint trace for D1S80. So what happens is when someone's second reading a gel, they call it, and if they call it something different than the first analyst, then you document it in your notes as to what if they aren't calling it a hint, then you write what they're actually calling it.
But the term hint and trace mean different things. Correct?
Yes, a hint would be less than a trace.
Okay. And everybody in your lab conforms to that standard?
Typically, yes.
Asked
Is
and
that a
answered,
standard
asked
that's
and
set out
answered,
anywhere
asked
in any of
and
the
answered.
manuals?
No, it's not.
Would you agree that that has a certain subjective element to it? One examiner might call something a hint, another person might call the same thing a trace.
Objection, cost for speculation.
Overruled.
It's possible. When you get down to those lower levels, a hint would be, a hint uniformly throughout the laboratory by casework analyst is something that, there's a hint there. There's an indication that something's there, but you can't be confident that it's actually a band. A trace, then uniformly through the lab, there is a band there. It's a very, very weak band.
Now, you, on page 91 of your notes, that's a run where you were looking at what types of samples? It's your DNA 59.
Those are 4 stains from Mr. Goldman's genes.
Now, would you agree that in your lane number 12 on your work notes, you described that as a 24, 24 with a hint of an 18?
Correct.
And the second reader scored it the same way, correct?
Yes, and also the supervisor who reviewed it scored it the same also.
What did you report that as in your report? And I ask you to refer to your report of April 6, 1995, page 8 of 11.
That was reported out as a 24 homozygote with a possible trace 18 allele.
What's the difference between a possible trace and a hint?
Well, there's a difference between actually writing your observations on your worksheet and doing your interpretation. Your worksheet's what you actually observed, and then one needs to think about how they're going to word these reports. And I could have written in the report a hint of an 18 allele, but a possible trace, the words sound more effective than a hint of an 18 allele. So the 3 of us that wrote this report, Mr. Sims, Mr. Myers, and myself, discussed it and tried to come up with the correct wording that would adequately describe what we saw. And what we came up with was possible trace. And that's not saying that there's a trace of an 18, that's saying there's possibly a band there, but we aren't confident calling it.
So when you say you want to do it more effectively, in other words, to put forward the prosecution's case?
No, not at all. To reflect what the evidence is. Doesn't matter if it helps the prosecution or the defense. We're just reporting the science.
What changed between your reading of the actual film and when you wrote the report to cause you to change the way that was described?
Objection, I can make some facts out of it.
Sustain. Rephrase the question.
Did something change in terms of your analysis of this particular test result? Did you read it again, or something change?
No, it's to write a hint in a report. It just doesn't. What does a hint mean in a report? In the laboratory, I know what a hint means, and I'm able to hopefully tell you what a hint means. But in a report, for someone just to pick this report up and be able to read it, whether it's the prosecution or the defense, we need to convey what we're trying to get across to them. And by saying a possible trace, that conveys that we're not confident that a band exists there. And to just say a hint of an 18 is, to me, it doesn't state it as effectively as saying a possible trace.
Now, unlike RFLP technology, you don't use any kind of computer aids to determine whether there's a band there and whether it's a hint or a trace or a possible trace, do you?
No, that's one of the great things about this system. We get to use the basics.
You just look at it and you say, looks like a trace to me or looks like a hint to this guy, right?
No, it's all based on one's experience also.
And every analyst that looks at these things always comes up with the same terminology, hint, trace, possible trace?
Well,
Objection, cost for speculation.
Overruled.
Well, I can't, outside of our laboratory, I'm not quite sure if people would put the same words to these. In our laboratory, it's pretty well defined. And as you can see on this particular one, 3 different individuals read it and they all came up with the same word, hint at 18.
Have you ever done any studies where you have looked at different quantities of DNA in a mixture, for instance, to see what happens when you start reducing the quantity to determine at what point a band becomes an artifact?
Yes, I've done studies to demonstrate at which level or at what level you start losing a minor component.
And have you published any studies that show the differences in
Well,
intensity of the bands between
Boy
a hint
bands
and a trace
when they're like
and a
40.
C-minus?
Girl bands when they're
No, I
like
have not.
25.
And there's no scale that you use
they
to do
become
this,
an
is there?
artifact. Hi, Terry.
No, it's a scale that's made in our laboratory.
I'm sorry?
It's made in our laboratory, and it's just a scale of progression, as I described earlier.
Now, as a sample degrades, have you done any testing to determine what happens when a sample is degrading, in terms of how it shows up, whether it shows up as a band or an artifact?
Yes, I did some temperature studies in the laboratory to see what happened when various samples were subjected to various temperatures for differing amounts of time.
It's not like a light switch, is it, where it's either there or it isn't there. There are gradations of band intensities, are there not?
That's true, yes.
And you must use your subjective judgment to decide whether something is really a band as opposed to an artifact, correct?
Well, when one gets to the lower level where you're not sure if it is a band, then yes, that's correct.
Now, when you read these things, did you know what genotypes the two victims and Mr. Simpson had?
Objection, these things is vague.
Sustained.
All the evidence samples that you read, when you did that, did you know the genotypes of Mr. Simpson and the two victims?
Yes, I did.
So you knew what results you expected to get, at least as to some of the contributors, correct?
I didn't know what I expected to get, no.
You knew what alleles were common to this case, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And you knew these were evidence samples from this case, did you not?
Yes, I did.
You didn't have any kind of expectation in your mind that perhaps these evidence samples would produce these bands?
Well, no, because that's part of testing the evidence, is to see who can be excluded and who can't be excluded.
You know, are you familiar with the term examiner bias?
Yes, I've heard that.
What does that mean?
You know, I believe I've only heard it in the context of, let me back up. Examiner bias, I think, would be an individual having some bias on their examination.
Have you ever heard it used in the context of someone who knows the results they're supposed to get, subconsciously getting the results that they think they're supposed to get? Not through any trickery or lying or anything, but just you see what you think you're going to see.
So someone could produce bands on the gel? Is that what you're stating?
No, someone might interpret one thing as an artifact or as a faint band, depending on what they expect to see.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that happening, no.
You're not aware of any studies that talk about that particular phenomenon?
I haven't read any studies that address that, no.
Now, you indicated that the range of size of the fragments in the D1S80 system was about 400 to 800 base pairs,
Oh, roughly, yes.
and the size of the fragments in the DQ alpha system are less than 400 base pairs, correct? It's about 240?
Correct, around 242.
So would you agree that in a degrading sample, you would expect the D1S80 bands to disappear before the DQ alpha allele from a particular piece of DNA?
Yes, that's possible.
So that if you had a mixed sample, let's say in the DQ alpha system, you see evidence of a mixture, but you don't see any extra alleles in the D1S80 system, that might be explained by the fact that the sample is degraded.
Yes, and one needs to also look at their yield gel to determine if degradation was occurring on that, if it's possible.
Well, you're aware that the Bundy drops in this case were severely degraded, or are you aware of that?
Yes, I believe some of the samples were degraded.
Okay. And are you aware of the DQ alpha testing results on the steering wheel sample? It's item 29.
Yes, I am.
You're aware that there was a 4 allele, which is inconsistent with a genotype of any of the 3 people in this case.
Yes, there was a weaker 4 allele detected on the steering wheel sample.
And the reason it was inconsistent because there was no 1.3 to go along with that, which would have been consistent with Ronald Goldman.
Right. This was a very low-level amplification, or a low-level amplification.
You never tested the steering wheel, item number 29, with the D1S80 system, did you?
No, we didn't.
There was no effort made to try and find out what alleles might be present.
No, there wasn't enough DNA present to analyze it by the D1S80 system.
And how do you know that?
Because I remember discussing that issue with Gary Sims at the time that we were doing the analysis on those samples.
How much DNA was present?
I'll have to refer to Gary Sims' notes to tell you that.
still think she should make him provide her with this instead of her frantically searching for it on the stand. He should provide her.
You did that item in your notes?
Yes, I have.
All right, can you give counsel the page reference?
It's on Gary Sims, page 40. This is another advantage to numbering pages, I guess.
What page are you referring
Gary
Um,
Sims, 40.
Yes,
to? 36?
40.
Gary Sims, 40.
40.
Sorry.
Compare your notes with Ms. Montgomery's.
Yes, the quantity was approximately 0.9, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
0.9 what, nanogram?
Nanograms.
Ms. Montgomery? Nanograms?
Correct, 0.9 nanograms.
Okay, Montgomery, like Montgomery Ward. Now we'll remember. If you're
Well,
old enough
be-
to remember
to
Montgomery
two
Ward.
significant digits, Gary wrote 0.86 nanograms.
And you performed D1S80 tests on amounts less than that, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
So it wasn't a matter of there not being enough to test, was it?
No, it was a matter of there not being enough to test, due to the fact that this sample was first used for DQ alpha typing, and after using a portion of it for the DQ alpha typing, there wasn't enough sample left for D1S80 typing.
Could we have photo 95, please? And this will be, what are we up to?
This would be 1176. Mrs. Robertson, 1176? Yes. That's 1176.
Ms. Montgomery, could you look at the monitor and tell me if that appears to be a photograph of your run number 297?
Yes, actually, this analysis was done by Steve Myers at our laboratory.
And this is it has samples from Nicole Brown Simpson's dress, correct?
Yes, it does.
And the interpretation of this sample for samples G5 and G6 were an 18 allele stronger than a 24 allele.
You're referring to G3?
No, G5 and 6. Let me highlight those at the top. See G5 and G6?
Yes.
And you agree that that is an accurate picture of that film for that particular run?
Yes, it is. But once again, it's difficult to see the weaker components of this, and you'll actually have to look at the gels yourself.
All right, let me zoom in on G5 and 6. Would you agree that you cannot see any 24 allele, at least on this picture? What you see is the 18s, correct?
Correct.
There is nothing apparent here.
Well, this is all done with your computer. I mean, this isn't the actual sample, and so I don't know.
Would you look at your original sample and tell me if you agree that it is extremely faint?
It's a trace level of 24.
So this is a
But
trace, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but you can see it in here, and when you do see a copy of it later on, you'll be able to see that it's a trace amount of a 24 allele.
How much more is it than a hint?
Well, a hint, as I stated, is a hint is a possible. It's not a well-defined band. This trace, these are well-defined bands, and they're just very faint. And as far as why you can't see it on your monitor, I can't explain that. This is the actual
You have
copy.
I'm sorry, you have the actual one there?
Yes, I do.
Can we take a look at that?
Yes, but I would prefer that it not be put into evidence. Mr. Harmon has a copy of the blue copies.
Well, let me use the blue copy. Is that adequate?
Oh, yes, Mr. Harmon has those copies, I believe.
Mrs. Robertson?
Did we get that number?
Yes, we did.
This is run 297.
In the corner. All right.
This is exhibit 275I. Is on Elmo?
Go. Mrs. Robertson? Vote. Does it say AG 297 on that, Mr. Harris?
I believe it's just backwards or upside down.
Oh. Okay. Now, the area of interest that we're looking at are the two lanes over toward the right between the two ladders, correct?
Correct.
And you're saying that there is something more than a hint, which is a band, at 24.
Correct.
And can we put arrows in that area, Mr. Harris? And can we print that out, please? And I'd like to have that shown to the jury, please. You can mark this print out.
All right, if you hand, do you want to hand the blue copy?
Maybe we can hand both at the same time.
All right.
That table stays up at night with each other saying, oh yeah, this question will really annoy everybody. Let's ask this. They spend hours thinking of the annoying questions.
Could you make the printout 1176, please?
1177.
1177.
Make it print out 1176A.
Whatever your pleasure is.
Well, do you want to keep them together?
I think we just have one. That's fine.
All right.
That's good. 1176A. Let's hold off on that and show another picture. We can do a couple of them at the same time, if that's okay.
Proceed.
Could we have photo number 92, please?
Can I see a copy, that blue copy?
Sure.
Thank you.
Your Honor, could this be marked as the next in order,
1177.
1177? Now, Ms. Montgomery, the picture that we've put up now, 1177, contains the samples from Nicole Brown Simpson's fingernail scrapings, does it not?
Yes, it does.
I have an objection on making a coach on this, and it relates to what Ms. Montgomery said a moment ago.
All right, with the court report, please.
Now, Ms. Montgomery, this is one of the pictures that you looked at lunch to compare with your original film, correct?
Correct.
This states that it's not one of the pictures, Your Honor.
Sustained for his question.
Well, this is a scanned image of the photograph that I have right here. Would you like to look at it?
Objection is irrelevant.
Would you like to look at the photograph that you looked at to assure yourself it's the same one?
Objection, that's irrelevant.
If you would like to hand that to me, sure. And yes, this is a photograph that you asked me to look at during lunchtime, and it appears to be a photograph taken by Dr. Ed Blake of one of my D1S80 gels.
Okay, and does it appear substantially the same as the scanned photograph, the same photograph?
Objection is irrelevant, whether it's substantially the same.
Sustained.
Does it appear, I'm sorry, does it appear to be the same on the screen as what you have in your hand?
Well, it has the same labeling and everything. I mean, this is a computer scan of the actual picture. So it appears similar. It's missing some of the side writing that's on these pictures.
Does it look any different at all, other than the side writing, other than the scanned image being a little smaller?
No, it looks very similar. I mean, it appears to be the same one scanned into a computer, I guess you're
And
doing.
you compared these photographs with your films during lunch, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And you indicated to me after lunch that these appeared to be accurate representations of your films, correct?
Correct. Some of the subtle, I mean, as I stated earlier, you need to actually see one of the blue copies to see some of the subtle, or some of the less intense bands, and I assume you'll be seeing those later.
Okay. And if any of these pictures that I show you, if something else is revealed on your copy, you tell me and we'll show that your copy as well, okay?
Okay.
Now, this is the run that you did with the samples from the fingernail scrapings, correct?
Correct.
And the fingernail scrapings appear in these lanes, 45B, 46B, and 45A1, correct?
Correct. Those are the scrapings and the clippings.
Okay. Which is which, just so it's clear.
Hi, John.
45B, referring to my notes, 45B is the right scraping. 46B is the left scraping, and 45A -B1 is the right clipping.
Now, let me back out of this, and I want to highlight those three lanes.
Hi, Josh.
Now, would you agree that there appears to be something going on below the 18 allele, correct?
You know, you're focusing in on these and zooming them up. You need to look at the actual gel. You can't,
Okay,
we don't
let's look
image
at-
our gels. We just do a hands-on
Okay.
look at the
Objection,
gel.
move to strike it, and I'd ask the court to take that exhibit off the screen.
No, proceed.
Let's look at your original of this one, okay?
What was the gel number again? AG 293?
293.
Yes, this is my original. I have taped to the back a transparency with the labeling on it, but it's just a temporary removable item.
And would you agree that the area that I've blown up here conforms to what's on your original in terms of these band-like items below 18?
Well, no, this is like taking a very close-up photograph and trying to ask the person what they see in the whole photograph. You need to look at the big picture. You can't just focus in like that. It's
Well, look at the big picture.
inaccurate. By looking at this gel, there's just some silver precipitating in this region, and once again, you'll be able to see these. And there's just, you know, a little darkening down here. It's not a band by any means.
Would you agree that it looks like what we have up on the screen?
Well, this is a magnification. So,
Yes.
I mean, if I were to try to magnify this with my eyes, yes, but I think you need to look at the actual data and not magnify it up like that.
Well, we'll look at it. Does it look like there is something going on below the 18 allele at the position of the 17 allele under 46B?
What you can see is, if you look up at the gel, you could see a smearing from the first ladder all the way, I can't see it from here, but if you look at the first ladder and all the way over to past the second to the last ladder, you'll see this dark smearing, and that's just a little silver being precipitated. That's just a smearing. It's during the staining process, and it's not by any means a band.
Would you agree that neither Nicole Brown Simpson, Ronald Goldman, nor O.J. Simpson have a 17 allele in the D1S80 system?
I agree with that, yes.
Now, this smearing that you're talking about that causes that activity in the 17 allele, is this something that went wrong with this test?
I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to
Is
bring
this
my
kind of
phone
smearing
this time.
something that you typically see where you would have, call them band-like appearances, appear on the gels?
Objection to the state's testimony.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Is this kind of smearing something that's typical for the D1S80 system?
It's not, well, no, I don't typically see something like this, and it's just, like I said, the silver is being precipitated and causing a nice flowing smear through that portion of the gel.
Did you run this again to see whether that activity at allele 17 disappeared?
Well, I don't see any activity at allele 17.
Did you run this again?
No, I did not.
Well, we have the picture, so. Your Honor, I would ask that this particular photograph, as well as the last one, be circulated to the jury.
All right, at this time? All right.
And
1177 and 1176 with the printout.
the last one, we'll submit the blue copy as well.
All right. In 1177, Mr. Blazer, would you hand 1177 to juror number 7 and hand 1176 and the blue copy to juror number 1?
Now, the photograph that's up here, she's been referring to her original, which is different from the blue copy, and I'm wondering if the court would like me to circulate her original with my photograph, just so the jury can look at both.
May I see the original? Is this something a layperson can read by looking at it?
Oh, yes, these are... And you want to try to avoid touching the gel because you don't want to leave your oils on it.
Yep. All right, then we ought to do this in one set at a time.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, be careful how you handle the original gel, please.
You just handle on the side because if you, just like photographs, if you touch the center, it can cause some residues.
So I will hand 275I and our printout, which is 1176A.
All right. Who's looking at that? Let me see, counsel. without the report. B.
Mr. Conway, this is the gel that shows 30, 31, 293, and 305. Do you have that in mind? Oh, maybe it isn't.
What AG number was that?
174.
Samples. 275B is reference samples, correct?
Now, do you see in the reference sample lane for Mr. Simpson, there appears to be 3 bands. Do you agree?
You know, I'll refer to my copy.
Okay. Can we zoom in on that a little bit more? Actually, there appears to be 4 bands, I think. Would you agree there appears to be actually 4 bands in that reference lane?
Yes, that's a shadow band effect.
That's not supposed to happen, is it?
Well, sometimes you see it in the center section of these acrylamide gels.
That's not supposed to happen, is it?
It's not supposed to happen. To optimize, you would prefer that it did not happen. It does happen on occasion, though.
What do you mean to optimize? You would prefer it not happen? You don't want it to happen, do you?
No, you don't want it to happen.
So something went wrong with this particular gel that caused that to happen.
Objection, that's argumentative, and she didn't complete her
Sustained.
Did something go wrong with this particular gel that caused extra bands to show up?
Well, something didn't go wrong with the gel. Sometimes we see these shadow bands in the inside region of the gel, just in the center section. And as you can see, it is isolated to the center section of the gel. If it was an issue, the sample should be rerun. If there's a potential that these were mixed samples or something such as that, then you want to rerun these. it doesn't change any of the results of the analysis on this gel.
Is it one of the shortcomings of this system that sometimes happens that you get extra bands on there that are shadow bands?
Objection, that's argumentative.
Sustain, rephrase the question.
Is that a characteristic of this system that, and how, let me ask you this, how frequently does this happen?
It depends on who is doing the analysis. Different people. This is a very techniquey system. Some individuals tend to see it a little more often than others. In our laboratory, we've been able to minimize it, so we rarely see it anymore.
How often do you get it in tests that you conduct?
I'd say less than 5% of my gels would see them.
Now, would you also agree that the band on Mr. Simpson's reference sample at 24 is uneven in the sense that it's not even the same intensity across the band? Appears to be a kind of very bright on the left side of that band.
Well, there's the artifact, that little dot right on the end of the 24 band. But by looking at this copy also has that little dot, but it appears to be relatively equal intensity across the length of the well.
That little dot's not supposed to be there either, is it?
They're saying not supposed to be there. The dot is not part of the sample. No.
So it's not supposed to be there, correct?
One wouldn't want it to be there, no.
Could we have photo number 96? And I have an additional photo that will be 1178. I'm sorry? Yeah. We have photo 1174 and 1178 side by side, please. Does the photograph on the right appear to be your run 299?
No, it does not.
What run does that appear to be?
294.
Okay. And is it correct that these, the photo on the right has the samples 303 and 304 from the Bronco on them? I'm sorry, it's the one on the left. On the left of the screen is the run that has samples 303 and 304.
Correct.
And the one on the right is the run that has the samples for 30 and 31 from the Bronco and 293 from the carpeting in the Bronco.
That's correct.
Now, 303 and 304, you read those as containing a very weak 18 allele, I believe. Is that correct?
Once again, I'll look up my notes. Yes, for the two Bronco samples, DNA 52 and DNA 53, there was a weak 18 detected.
Now, I'm going to try and blow up that area. And the area that we've indicated is approximately in here, is that correct?
I have the same objection that we lodged earlier. That's a distortion.
Or will,
In here? Have I circled the right areas?
Yes, as you can see, the 18 allele is, the 18 ladder allele is, I'm sorry, yes, that is correct.
Okay, and it's a very faint band, correct?
No, it's a weak band.
Weak band. And it's a weak band on your original as well, correct?
Yes, it's a weak band.
And that would indicate a very small amount of DNA being present, correct?
Well, it's relative to the amount that's present in the whole sample, yes.
Okay. And were you able to quantify the amount of DNA present that was contributed by the 18 allele?
No, what we do is a total quant to determine the total amount of DNA. We can't tell the difference between different alleles' contribution for the sample.
Would you agree that the band intensity of the 18 bands that I've circled is about the same as the 1 nanogram standard, or maybe less? Or what is your assessment of the relative intensities?
I'd say that's it.
pull the microphone closer.
I'm sorry. There's approximately equal to the 1 nanogram, slightly less than the 1 nanogram for DNA 53.
And the intensity of that is far less than the 24 allele and the 25 allele, correct?
Well, yes, it is less than either the 24 or the 25 alleles.
Now, samples 30 and 31 are on the right picture, correct?
Yes, they are.
And you did not see any 18 alleles on those samples, correct?
For item 30 and 31, no, I did not see an 18 allele.
And I'm going to circle the area where you would expect to see that, specifically there. And would you agree that I've made little squiggles there about where the 18 band would be?
Yes, that proportion of that.
Okay.
correct.
And you indicated there was nothing there that you saw that could be a band.
That's correct.
Could we have that printed, please? Now, I want you to assume for a minute that 30 and 303 came from the same general area.
Objection, that's the proper hypothetical mistakes the testimony.
Sustained.
If you had a mixed stain that had alleles present in part of the stain that weren't present in another part of the stain, do you have that in mind?
So what you're saying is a blood stain where one person's bleeding here and one person's bleeding here and some of one person's diffusion into another?
No, let's just say you have a stain, a fairly relatively large stain, and you test one area of the stain and you find some alleles. You test another area of the stain and you find some additional alleles. You have that in mind?
Yes.
Would that be an indication, would one explanation be that those stains were put there at different times?
Objection, also speculation.
Sustained.
Proper foundation.
Sustained.
Would that be consistent with two different stains being put on that surface at different times?
I couldn't make a determination as to that now.
Okay. Could we have 11 photo 90 back on? Now, you have no personal information about what happened between when sample 30 and 31 was collected and when samples 303 and 304 were collected, do you?
No, I don't.
Now, the appearance of the 18 allele on 303 and 304, the very faint band, would you agree that the children of O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown Simpson both would have an 18 allele?
No, that's incorrect.
Why is it incorrect?
You're saying they would, or?
They would have an 18 allele. Both of
Oh,
them.
I'm sorry. You are correct. If the mother's an 18 homozygote, then the children would all have an 18 allele present.
And there's a strong likelihood that those children might also have a 24 and a 25, or a 25.
Correct.
And that's because you inherit these alleles from your parents.
Correct.
And if there were stains mixed in with a blood stain that, from the children, you might expect to see some of the children's alleles in the stain. Correct?
If you had individuals with the same type,
Yes.
yes, that's possible.
And you have no way of telling whether the 18 allele in samples 303 and 304 was put there or got into that sample at the same time as the 24 or 25 alleles, do you?
No, I don't.
You have no way of aging how old the sample is from looking at the gel, correct?
Well, some indication can be obtained by if a yield gel is done on a sample, you can obtain some information if degradation has occurred. But
Okay.
by looking at strictly the D1S80 results, no.
But you can't tell, you might be able to tell that there was degradation, but you can't tell how old the stain is, can you?
No.
Do we have, I have two more photos, Your Honor. One would be 11,
1179, 1180.
1179 and 1180. We have photo 97 and 98. Now, the photograph on the left, would you agree that that appears to be the gel with the samples from the glove, the Bundy glove, I'm sorry, the Rockingham glove, G11, 12, and 13.
Yes.
And the one on the right, which is photograph, which is exhibit 1180, appears to be stains G1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and 10, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And would you agree that you interpreted those, the three stains, G10, 11, and 13, as having a weak 25 allele?
Once again, I'll refer to the report. It's a weaker 25 allele. It's not a weak 25 allele.
It's much less intensity than the other alleles on those lanes, correct?
Yes, it's less intense than the 24 allele.
And let me circle 11 and 13. Oops. Have I got those about right?
Do the second one again. You encroach on the band itself.
So let me circle both of them. Okay? And the 25 band is here and here for those two samples, correct?
That's correct.
And the fact that it's so much less intense than the 24 band would indicate that if there was a contribution from a 24-25 genotype, that that person's contribution is very, very small compared to other contributors.
Yes, the 24, 25, or if the 25 is, well, the 25 is the minor component, along with an 18 on those samples. And the 24, 24 is the major contribution. So the minor contribution would be less than the major contribution.
And the same is true over on the picture of the right of G10 with respect to the 25 allele, correct?
That's correct, but in that situation, there isn't an 18 allele present.
But you called a 25 that's much less intense than the 24, correct?
I called a major type and a minor type, major type and a minor allele in that particular sample.
Can we print that, please? Save it and print it later. And could I have slide, first slide? The three stains from the glove, G10, 11, and 13, were the only stains on the glove where you found genotypes in the D1S80 system consistent with Mr. Simpson, correct?
That's correct. Those are the three areas where a 25 allele was detected along with the 24 allele.
And this is 1173A. Could we have B, please? And the indication that you have on your paperwork is that those three stains all came from the wrist area of the Rockingham glove, correct?
That's correct.
And we have the next slide, please. You tested a number of different stains from the rest of the Bundy glove, the Rockingham glove, correct?
Correct.
And isn't it accurate that you were able to exclude Mr. Simpson as a contributor to every stain that you looked at on that glove other than G10, 11, and 13 in the wrist area?
Yes, there was no 25 allele detected on the other stains.
And there was... When you received this glove, do you know whether it was turned inside out?
Gary Sims did all the examination of the evidence in this case, so I don't recall.
As a forensic specialist, if you got a glove as a piece of evidence and you wanted to turn it inside out, how do you do that? Do you have to handle the wrist area a lot to get it turned inside out?
Well, I think it's not just a forensic analyst, but how would an individual in general turn a glove inside out if it were out the opposite direction?
Would you agree it would involve considerable manipulation of the wrist area of the glove?
Yes, I would.
That goes to speculation.
Sustain. It's vague.
This would be an appropriate time to break.
Finish.
Do you have any way of quantifying the amount of DNA attributable to the 25 allele in G10, 11, and 13?
No.
Do you have any way of placing an upper limit on it?
Yes, I could, by looking at the relative intensity of the 25 compared to the major contributor of a 24 homozygote, I could tell you the extremes that it can be. And for the sensitivity of our system, what we find is at beyond 1 to 20, you can't see the minor component. You typically cannot see the minor contribution in a sample.
But you have no way of quantifying how much DNA was present that caused the 25 allele to appear.
The exact amount, no.
And it could be a very small amount.
Actually, it calls for speculation.
It's vague. Sustain.
Could be below 1 nanogram, couldn't it?
Of total DNA or of DNA on the
DNA on the gel.
gel? Well, in this case, what I could do is compare the 1 nanogram standard, the 25 allele, to the 1 nanogram standard. And would you like me to do that?
Yes.
That 25 allele is approximately equal intensity to the 1 nanogram control that's on the gel.
And I'm sorry, which sample were you looking at?
I'm looking at G11 and also G13.
How about G10?
G10 is also approximately equal to the 1 nanogram standard.
It's a much smaller amount compared to the other alleles on the gels, correct?
Yes, the other band in those samples looks a little greater than the 4 nanogram standard.
And you have no way of telling from this test whether or not that 25 allele got on that glove at the same time as the other alleles on the glove, do you?
No, I don't.
That's all I have.
Right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the afternoon. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss this case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. As far as the jury is concerned, we'll stand in recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And Ms. Montgomery, you're ordered to come back tomorrow morning, 8:45. All right? Stand in recess. Thank you, counsel.
Imagining that that really was a band, even though that's not your opinion, to look
at the typing results for the substrate control to see if that imaginary band appears there.
Objection vague as to what typing results?
Overruled.
Yes, one would want to look at the substrate control, and if banding did occur in the substrate control, or if any DNA was detected there, then you would want to compare that to your evidence sample.
Okay, and do you recall what your typing results were for stain number 50, one of those Bundy walk stains?
I'll have to look at the report in my notes.
While you're doing that, this imaginary band that you've already described was not there, but where did it line up with respect to the latter?
Your Honor, objection in terms of imaginary being argumentative.
Sustain. Rephrase the question.
Imagining that that really was a band, okay, which
Yes.
I'm forcing you to do in this question, where did that band that I've asked you to imagine line up with?
Well, as when Mr. Blazier was, excuse me, asking me, we saw that it was right in between the, I believe it was the 17. But let me look at my notes again to be sure of that. Mr. Harmon, what gel number was it? Analytical gel number?
So 184.
184 is what I've written down.
Thank you. The evidence sample, DNA A LAPD number 50 from the Bundy crime scene came back at 2425.
Okay, could we project 275C up, Your Honor? Okay, now, if you recall, Exhibit 275C, you want to take a look at it? That actually...
I'm going to object. We approach.
Oh. Okay, why don't you can turn that off. The bands in that stain were at 2425, is that true?
That's correct.
And nothing appeared in the area that the band that I've asked you to imagine appearing in 50 control, is that true?
That's correct.
And even if that band that I've asked you to imagine was on the 50 control, the fact that you see nothing on the 50 stain, what's the significance of that? And I'm asking you to imagine something that's contrary to your scientific opinion.
Well, the only banding pattern that was seen on the evidence sample that relates with that substrate control was a 24 band and a 25 band. There were no bands seen in any other region of that gel. That's it.
Okay, let's move to the proficiency tests that were shown up on the screen by Mr. Blazier. Did you know that the correct answer to the quality control sample on that proficiency test was a 1.13?
No, I did not. These are blind, or they're unknown to me. The results are unknown to me when I'm doing the analysis.
Did you make up the explanation of cross-hybridization for describing in your notes on the result sheet what you saw in that QC result?
No, cross-hybridization is documented in a lot of the literature.
Is it listed in the manufacturer's user guide on page 6-5?
Yes, it is noted in the Roche user's guide.
Okay, is it also mentioned in Dr. Blake's casework article, The Phenomenon of Cross-Hybridization, on page 704?
Dr. Blake does mention cross-hybridization in his 1992 casework paper. As far as the exact page, you'd have to show me the document.
And moving to the test sample in your proficiency test, when you wrote down what your opinion was when you saw the data, did you know that the correct answer was 1.23?
No, I did not.
Mr. Blazier put up the gel where the 3 reference samples were initially run, and you described that you were unable to type Mr. Simpson. Do you recall that yesterday?
Yes, Mr. Simpson's sample gave no results on the first amplification.
Okay, and your explanation for that was PCR inhibition. Do you recall that?
Correct.
Did you make up the explanation inhibition to explain that?
No, I did not.
Is the subject of inhibition, PCR inhibition, mentioned in the user guide by the manufacturer of these kits?
Yes, it is.
Is it also mentioned in Dr. Blake's casework article on page 719?
Yes, Dr. Blake does mention it. As far as the exact page, I would have to look at the document.
Is it also mentioned in the Chapter 17 that was authored by Dr. Blake and Cecilia von Berelding on page 214, the subject of PCR inhibition?
Chapter 17 of the PCR technology book?
Yes.
Yes, it's addressed, inhibition is addressed in that article also.
Is it also addressed in the analytical chemical article that we've discussed, authored by Dr. Blake and Becky Reynolds from Roche?
The article by Dr. Blake and Dr. Reynolds does mention inhibition also.
And is also discussed in a chapter in a book, the Saperstein book, the way we've described it, the authors of which are Dr. Blake and Dr. Sensabaugh, the subject of PCR inhibition.
Well, Saperstein has 3 books out, and in the 3rd edition, there's a chapter devoted to, the chapter I believe you're referring to is PCR, devoted to PCR, and there is mention of inhibition in that chapter.
And is there also an article by Dr. Blake?
Excuse me, Counsel, aren't we getting cumulative at this point?
This is my last article, Your Honor.
All right, last one.
It was the phenomenon documented by Dr. Blake and Mr. Higuchi, who's also, or Dr. Higuchi, who's also from Roche, in a 1989 symposium paper that was published in the FBI Symposium. You want to take a look at that one?
Yes, can I take a look at that?
The name of the article is PCR Inhibition in Blood Stains.
Yes, I recognize this article, and it does discuss inhibition in this article also.
And when faced with the prospect of PCR inhibition or strike that, do all of these articles also discuss what you do when you think there's PCR inhibition?
Yes, if inhibition occurs with the sample, and by inhibition you don't get any typing results, no products obtained from that sample, analysis should be reconducted to try to get a result from that sample. And it could be reconducted by either diluting the sample, by diluting the sample out and then reamplifying it.
Okay, and is that what you did?
Yes, I did.
And in your opinion, is that what any responsible forensic scientist would do?
Yes.
Okay, now did you see, do you remember Mr. Blazer showed those graphics, one about the glove and it purported to show the locations of stains where the 25 allele were found? Do you recall that yesterday?
Yes, I do.
Could we put that up on the screen, Your Honor?
All right, this is the defense exhibit.
1173C. Good. Have you had a chance to look at that?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the sampling of the glove and the relationship of the stains that were typed by you and Mr. Sims that produced that detected the 25 allele?
Yes, I've reviewed some photographs.
Is that slide misleading in terms of the location of the stains?
Objection. Argument sustained.
How misleading is that slide with respect to showing where those stains actually are?
Counsel, rephrase the question.
Does that slide accurately reflect the location of the stains which produced the 25 allele?
Well, I think the best depiction would be to see the actual photograph, to see,
Oh, well,
Why is that?
because that's the actual documentation of this item.
Okay. Would you like to do that, please? Good. We'll put the boards up. You just stay right where you are. (272A and B), Your Honor, the exhibit numbers. Montgomery, why don't you look at the slide again. From looking at that, can you tell whether that's a right-hand glove or a left-hand glove?
I believe it could be either glove, depending on the orientation of the hand.
Okay, would you look at 272B, the photo board, and if you could, take the pointer and show us where those stains really are on that right-hand glove, number 9 from Rockingham.
Objection, argument.
It's the same phrase question. And Mr. Harmon, how about if we take that board and put it on the main easel? You can put it on top of the results board
Okay,
because it's the height of that exhibit in that location.
sure, I just
Such
wanted
a-
to have them both together, that's fine.
All right, rephrase the question, please.
Okay, would you point out to the jury where the stains which produce the 25 allele are, or where they were?
Once again, just by looking at my notes to get the exact item numbers. A 25 allele was detected on G10. And there was also a 25 on...
Okay, and just, because these are inside-out photos, 2 of them, and one is right side out, could you make it real clear what surface that's on and where it is? Just describe it in words, please.
Okay, G10 is the inside surface near this rich wrist notch. And the results of G10 were a 24 allele and a weaker 25 allele.
Okay, next stain.
There was also a 25 allele detected at G11, and G11 is the outside palmar surface of the glove. And what was detected here was 24 allele and a weaker 25 and 18 alleles.
Okay,
On G13, which is also the outside surface of the glove, there was, near the notch area, there was a 24 allele detected and also weaker 25 and 18 alleles detected in this region.
okay, thanks, Ms. Montgomery. You can go back and have your seat. Mr. Blazer asked you about a problem you had with one of the glove gels. Do you recall that, with the ladder leaking?
Yes, I do.
And your solution to that was to rerun the test, is that right?
Yes, anytime I'm not confident with the results, or if there's any question in the results, I will do a reanalysis on those samples.
In fact, did you get the same answers when you reran that gel that you did on the gel where the ladder leaked into the lane?
Yes, for the evidence samples and the controls, I obtained the same results.
And is that what a responsible forensic scientist would do when faced with that problem?
Well, I think any individual, when there's a question, needs to do reanalysis on samples.
And Mr. Blazer projected AG 295 up there, the rear gate gel. Do you recall that yesterday?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and in your opinion, you described what was on there that he directed your attention to as not a problem. Is that true?
Could you state specifically what the problem he addressed on that gel was?
Okay, why don't you pull the microphone a little bit?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't really recall. We heard about a lot of problems yesterday. Do you recall that there was a problem, perhaps a line of bands that went all the way across the gel, or a line of shadows that went across the gel?
Well, I'll look at that gel and see if that's the one that had the silver smearing across the bottom region. And this is a beautiful gel. I don't know what problem could have been mentioned in this.
If there had been a problem, could any responsible forensic scientist have rerun it?
Yes, if a problem was detected, the gel should be rerun.
Okay, but you saw no reason to do that in this case, is that correct?
That's correct.
There was a lot of discussion yesterday about terms that you've used to communicate data that you saw, a hint, a trace, a possible trace. Do you recall those discussions?
Yes.
Do the words that you use to try to communicate or convey the data, do they somehow change the data?
No, they don't.
Okay. So the data is what you've shown this jury, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the words are words you've used to try to express that so that they can appreciate it?
Correct.
Mr. Blazer asked you some words about examiner bias yesterday, or some questions about examiner bias. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
I want to ask you a question about examiner bias. Can you make a 24-25
I remember
result
those questions.
look like an 18 by wishful thinking?
No, you can't.
Did anything arise in the course of Mr. Blazer's questioning of you that in any way undermines the results that you and Mr. Sims have presented to this jury?
No, there was nothing.
If a responsible forensic scientist had questions about the results you have presented, could she have performed retesting to address the questions scientifically?
Yes, anytime there's a question, reanalysis can be done on these samples. The ones where there were questions, reanalysis was done.
And could that reanalysis be done using PCR product that you conserve?
Yes,
Could it be done using samples, swatches that you preserve?
yes,
And could it be used on extracted DNA that you preserved in this case?
yes, if any extracted DNA remains.
Okay. Thanks, Ms. Montgomery.
All right, Mr. Blazer?
Thank you. Ms. Montgomery, yesterday before lunch, or at lunch, I gave you every picture that I was going to use, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
And I told you to look at them and compare them to your gels, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
And I told you to look at them and compare them to the originals of your gels, not the blue films, right?
I don't recall if you specifically said to compare them to the originals or the copies.
You didn't have the blue films, did you? They were in evidence.
Oh, no, I make multiple copies of the blue film, or of the gel, both for discovery purposes and also to retain copies for the case files.
And I told you that I wanted you to look at them carefully to make sure that they were accurate pictures, that they accurately portrayed what you have on your films, didn't I?
Objection is irrelevant. Cost of hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, you asked me to look at those photos and see how they compared to the gels I had, or the
And-
copies.
I'm sorry. And you came back after lunch and you handed my pictures back to me and you said, "These are great. I wish we had some of these," didn't you?
Let's talk about the computer, not the photos.
Sustained.
It's irrelevant.
You came back and told me these pictures are fine, didn't you?
Objection is irrelevant. Cost of hearsay.
Overruled. That's not irrelevant.
Actually, the photos, they're, as far as showing the ladders and what the samples are and the strong bands, they're excellent photos. As far as the weaker bands, you need to actually see the gel to be able to capture the weaker gels and to be able to visualize them with your eyes.
Move to strike is non-responsive.
Overruled.
Did you tell me any of that yesterday after lunch?
I told you parts of that, yes.
And I told you that for any picture that I showed, if you wanted to look at your original gel, you should tell me so, right?
I don't recall if you said that or not.
Didn't I say that in front of the jury here? Do you remember that?
I don't remember hearing it, but you may have said it.
And the two films that we sent, that we showed to the jury, were your films, not my pictures, correct?
That's correct.
Why is he so mad? What is angering him?
I want to show you 275I, which is the film with the dress samples on it, correct?
Objection. None so.
Overruled.
Okay.
And I put a Post-it on there with arrows above the two bands that you say are there at 24, correct?
That's correct.
And let me show you the substrate control that Mr. Harmon asked you about, which is 275Q. The band in the substrate control lane, have I put a Post-it with an arrow above the band that you say isn't a band?
Objection is argumentative. It's convoluted.
Overruled.
Well, the band that you say isn't a band, but it's not a band. That's why I say it isn't a band. This is one where we were talking about it yesterday, where there's this little glitch in the gel, and if we could pass it around to the jury for them to look at, that would probably help.
You see something there that looks like a band?
No, I don't. I see an artifact in between these two lanes.
You see an artifact that looks like a band.
No, it does not look like a band.
You can see something there that looks like a band, and you can't see, what you can see on the dress is much fainter than what you see on the substrate control, correct?
No, that's incorrect. This is not a band, and it's not a band because it's not a distinct banding pattern. It also falls within two lanes, and you can tell it's just a, I don't know how else to describe it besides a blip. But if you could show it to the jury, I think that would help.
Yeah, I can put these on the Elmo side by side. That's good.
All right.
let's try one at a time. We can't fit them both on here. Let's try 275Q, the substrate control first. Can you zoom in on it?
Would it be okay if I went to the podium?
Well, let's see how it projects first on the monitor.
Oops, that's upside down.
All right, can you see the area right below where my post-it says no band?
Yes, I do.
And that's what you're saying is not a band.
That's correct.
Now let's look at the dress. Now, you see that area? You're
Yes,
calling
I do.
those two bands, aren't you?
Excuse me?
You interpreted those as being two bands there, didn't you?
Could you put it into real life instead of magnified? Yes, and as when I was talking, or when Mr. Harmon was presenting the gels, asking me to explain some of the fainter ones, I was saying that it's difficult to see those fainter bands from when they're projected up on the screen, and that you actually have to see them. It's just like slide presentation. Sometimes you lose some of the contrast when you put something on an overhead such as this.
Eric, we pass these to the jury.
Yes?
Number 7.
No, you need to talk to the attorneys.
Mr. Blazier, I think it's best.
Hold on, there's no question pending.
Have a white sheet of paper, makes it a little easier to see.
No, they have their jurors' notebooks.
The jury should see that too, Kelly. I mean, we just all watched the same thing happen. The jury should see that. Right? No, obviously that's not right. Is that really nothing this whole time? Hold on, hold on. It looks like is he wow, what are they doing? I'm sorry, when they showed her, I assumed they were talking. Gross.
All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Ms. McCarthy, these slides we just showed the jury, this is what you submitted to the court as evidence of your testing, correct?
Do those have the evidence labels on them?
I'm sorry? Do they have the labels?
Yes, those are the two.
Now, cross-hybridization. I want to ask you a couple of questions about what Mr. Harmon asked you. Under what conditions do you get cross-hybridization so that you have a 1.3 dot show up?
Cross-hybridization can occur when there's a slight difference in the temperature of the stringency wash during the typing process of the DQ alpha. And I believe Dr. Cotton may have gone into this in a bit more detail. And if the temperature is slightly off, then you could get some of the weak dots occurring within the sample.
There are controls built into the system so that you don't have temperatures too low, correct?
Well, we calibrate our water bath and we check it with a thermometer. But sometimes if the water level's not high enough, then you could have a subtle or a slight difference in the temperature from between where the strips are and to where the water level ends and then where the top of the tray is.
What does the Amplitype User's Guide say with respect to cross-hybridization and when it can occur in terms of how much DNA you have to test?
The user's manual, actually if I could refer to that.
We refer you to section 6.2.3.
Yes, they talk about cross-hybridization and how it can occur when when you develop your strips for too long or too much DNA is added into too much DNA is amplified. And these are two other ways that cross-hybridization can occur.
Does the manual say that it can occur when you develop your pictures properly and don't use too much DNA?
When you develop your pictures properly?
Well, let's talk about one of those at a time. If
That's
you use
a question.
if you use the appropriate quantity of DNA, you shouldn't get that, right?
No, that's not what this says.
Well, why don't you read it to us?
Would you like me to read the whole paragraph to you?
Yes.
Okay. It's section 6.2.3 of the
Say
Amplified
dumbass,
User's Guide
please.
put out by Roche.
Please say
There's a Cetus
dumbass.
emblem because Cetus was the original company and it was bought out by Roche. And in the supporting material section 6-5, it talks about typing of large amounts of amplified DNA. It's a long paragraph.
Go ahead.
Amplification of samples containing high levels of starting DNA, parenthetically greater than 30 nanograms, generally results in large quantities of amplified DNA. Hybridization of very high concentrations of amplified DNA to the probe strips can sometimes lead to the detection of faint background signals, much weaker than the C dot, which is due to non-specific, quote, cross-hybridization, unquote. Cross-hybridization in this context refers to the weak interaction of a probe with a DQ alpha sequence, allele, that is not perfectly complementary. This occurs more with the subtyping probes than with the typing probes, because the subtyping probes detect differences between the alleles of only one or two bases. That's only halfway through. The extent of cross-hybridization, even with very high levels of amplified DNA, is so low that any faint background signals only appear after lengthy color development. These nonspecific signals do not appear if the color development reaction is stopped with a degree of coloration of the specific dots appears to have reached a maximum.
You can stop there if you like, unless you want to read the rest.
Yeah, I think we should read the
Okay.
rest. Some samples having very large quantities of amplified DNA require only 5 to 10 minutes for maximum coloration. And our laboratory, we develop between 20 and 30 minutes. Development of color beyond this point, overdevelopment, can also lead to high strip background, which decreases contrast. And that's one thing our laboratory, Dr. Blake has noted that we should stop our color development a little earlier than we do.
Mr. Harmon told you to use Dr. Blake's name as many times as you could, didn't he?
He did not tell me to use Dr. Blake's
No,
name as
he
many
didn't
times.
So the manual tells you that you shouldn't get these dots if you develop your film the appropriate amount of time, doesn't it?
Well, it's not film. What we're talking about are strips, and those are the membranes, the thin membranes that had the dots on them, the 1 dot, the 2 dot, the 3 dot. So we're referring to strips, not film.
The manual says that you only get that phenomenon when you develop it for too long, correct?
What that says, the manual says that's one reason why you can get that.
Does it give any, and it also says you have to have a high molecular weight of DNA before you see that phenomenon too, right?
No, it said that a high level of DNA, and
Was
that's
that-
one way that cross-hybridization can occur.
High level means a lot of DNA, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And in the mixed samples in this case, you had very low levels of DNA, didn't you?
That's correct.
Now, does it describe any other way you get cross-hybridization in here other than those two ways?
Not in that particular manual.
And this is put out by the manufacturer of the kit.
That's correct.
Now, Dr. Blake's article on casework analysis, would you agree that that says that you don't get cross-hybridization unless the temperature is too low, 54 degrees rather than 55?
Yes, I believe the casework, the article he's referring to, it's the 1992 publication by Dr. Blake and some other individuals, states that with changes in the temperature that cross-hybridization can occur.
Now, let's assume hypothetically that you can get cross-hybridization at lower levels of DNA. Would you agree that what that results in is giving you 1.3 dots that really aren't there? I'm sorry, that don't represent any DNA.
Well, I think we need to remember that these dots are very faint and they're not interpreted as part of the results. These 1-3s are outlines or hints. If it's anything substantial and there's a question, the reanalysis should be conducted.
So these are the hints as opposed to the possible traces.
Well, you're bringing possible trace into the way the D1S80 is described. The hint as opposed to a trace. If it's trace, then you want to re-examine those samples.
Now, when you have a trace, you want to re-examine them?
Yes, one should re-examine if there's a trace amount.
Let me show you Defense 1172A in yellow. Now, you recall, Ms. Montgomery, that this is the second time that you ran these proficiency samples, correct? I'm sorry, that's the first time.
Yes, that's the first analysis.
And you got one hint and one trace. You got a hint in QC839 and a trace in the positive control, correct?
That's correct.
So you did it again. Would that be the
Asked
reason
and
why you did it
answered.
again?
No, I don't believe that's the reason why I did it again. I would need to see that whole case file to determine why subsequent analysis was done on these samples.
All right, and you got nothing in your evidence samples, the actual proficiency samples, of any hints or traces, did you?
That's correct.
Now let me show you 1172B.
Let's pull the microphone closer.
This is the second time you ran those same samples, isn't it?
That's correct.
And you got two traces in your proficiency evidence samples. Didn't you not? Didn't you? You actually got three, didn't you?
Yes, that's true. But if you look at the controls on that strip, the positive control and the QC samples, there is nothing indicated there. And as far as the type that was reported out for these samples, sorry, I can't. On sample 433, the reported result is a 1.2, 3. Those trace amounts in the trace amounts of cross-hybridization were not reported out. They weren't significant to the analysis.
You characterized them as a trace when you read the dots, didn't you?
Yes, that's what I wrote.
And you didn't redo that one, did you?
No, I did not.
And your quality control showed, I think you just indicated the quality control worked fine. That shows two hints, doesn't it?
Yes, those are hints or, just a small amount of color developing in those.
And this is a proficiency test that you say you got the right answers.
Yes, I did.
Can we have the glove board, please?
Yes. Boards,
Well, actually, let me have you without that. We have the 1173C, please.
He's already asked her all of these questions. She's already answered all of these questions the exact same way.
Ms. Montgomery, yesterday when I showed you this, I asked you whether the stains G10, G11, and G13 were in the wrist area, didn't I?
I believe you did, yes.
You said they were.
Yes, they're in the lower portion of the glove.
In the wrist area, aren't they?
I believe that's correct.
So where I have circled is the wrist area, isn't it?
Well, yes, that's the lower level of the glove. One would call it a wrist area.
Okay. Now, the upper area of the glove, is it accurate to say that the various samples that were tested, that Mr. Simpson was excluded from any bloodstains on that glove up around the finger area where someone might grab the fingers to take the glove off?
Yes, there were areas in the finger region that were tested, and there was no 25 allele detected in those samples.
And there was no, Mr. Simpson was excluded from any samples in the palm area where someone's finger might make contact if they were holding it with the other hand.
Well, that-
That's not an evidence that they were all tested, Your Honor.
sustain.
You tested a large number of samples from that glove, didn't you?
Gary Sims examined the glove, and I guess I should note that for G11, It was near the wrist notch. It was termed the outside palmar surface. And as I stated, Mr. Sims looked at all these samples and extracted them, and then I analyzed them for D1S80.
The reason for taking so many samples was to get a representative sample from different parts of the glove, correct?
That would be one reason to test various areas, yes.
And various areas were tested, and Mr. Simpson was excluded from everywhere on that glove except the wrist area, correct?
Well, as I stated, the wrist and near the wrist area.
Ms. Montgomery, have you ever taken a pair of leather gloves off by pulling them off at the wrist? Have you
It's the
ever-
same.
Yes.
Mr. Harmon?
If there's stuff all over them, like every time I clean, I don't touch the fingers if the gloves are all dirty, even with my other gloved hand. I go down to the wrist.
We'll come back to that in a second. Could you cut that and then we'll come back to that? I just have a couple questions, Ms. Montgomery. The cross-hybridization, when you were reading from the user guide, there was something in there that I think needs to be clarified. I believe the exact words were that this cross-hybridization occurs more with the subtyping probes.
Yes, that's correct.
And could you tell the jury, just so they understand what that means? What are the subtyping probes that were used in this case?
Well, the subtyping probes, there are 4 nominal alleles, and this is the 1 allele, the 2 allele, the 3 allele, and the 4 allele. And then there are also subtypes, and that's the 1.1, and the 1.3, and the 1.2, but the 1.2 has to be inferred because there's not a specific probe for that 1.2. So it's more common to see the cross-hybridization occurring with samples of the subtype.
Could we show 1173C? Could you come back here, Ms. Montgomery? Okay, what I'd like you to do is, just so the jury can appreciate what this means and doesn't mean, you know the symbol for a circle with a line through?
Yes.
Could you put that over the no genotypes consistent with OJS, please?
Ghostbusters.
And maybe we need, is that
That's
line?
the wrong way. Is that what you'd like?
Yes, and if there's enough room, could you write down below that, let's make this line as thin as possible because they're kind of beefy there, down below, genotypes consistent with defendant, if you can fit that in there. Or just types consistent with defendant.
This is like one of those boards.
Does that make you dizzy?
It's very difficult to write here.
That's
Jump
pretty
down and do
rude.
this.
That is rude.
Can you read that?
We'll remember what that means. Could we capture that, Your Honor? I don't know if that's 1173C1, or I'm not sure how we number this one.
This one would be a prosecution exhibit.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Montgomery, we're done with that now.
276.
Could I have 275C back?
He's going about it the wrong way. He has to be able to see the jury. Judge Ito even told them that the jury is getting tired of, he can see them rolling their eyes and they're getting tired of all of the DNA and everything. He should have just put her on the stand and he should have said, Miss Montgomery, was Ron Goldman's blood found on those gloves? Yes, they were. Was Nicole's blood found on those gloves? Yes, they were. Was OJ's blood found on those gloves? Yes, they were. Boom. Walk away.
Back up there, and this is my last few questions of you. Ms. Montgomery, while this is the substrate control, the 50C, I'm pretty sure that's the one it is. Or no, that's the, I'm sorry. The gel that had the 50 control on it.
275Q.
Now, we just need to get back to a little basic here. You put the samples in all the way across the top, and they move in one direction, is that right?
That's correct.
I believe one of the things you said is that whatever that is, it's not a band, is that right?
That's correct.
And one of the reasons it's not a band is that it's not in a lane. Is that true?
All right, that's one of the reasons. I think you'll want to clear the telestrator. Yes, and it doesn't have the definition of a band.
Well, let's just focus on where it is. It's your opinion that it's not in one of those lanes, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, these bands, they're DNA. They're started out, they're DNA material, right?
Correct.
I think we heard amplicons. There's amplicons in there?
Correct.
Microphone closer, please.
Now, can these things move sideways?
No, they're moving down through the gel.
I mean, suppose it was a band full of amplicons from a very willful person. Could they, and they wanted to turn left, could they do that?
No, they do not have control over themselves.
They move in one direction,
That's correct.
in one direction only.
Correct.
Thanks. No further questions. No.
Mr. Blazier? All right, Ms. Montgomery, thank you very much. You're excused. All right, let me see counsel without the court report, please.
We get to see someone new, or we don't get to see someone new, and we're going to see arguments, motions, sanctions. Let's see. We only have 30 seconds left, so we'll find out what we're going to do tomorrow. Here we go. Or we get to see nothing. Is it because Johnny's on the phone? I'm cheating. I don't care. I'm cheating. We get to see arguments tomorrow. No one's on the stand.
Mr. Harmon, Mr. Scheck, my understanding is the next witness is Colin Yamauchi, correct? All right, there's some issues we need to resolve before we get to Mr. Yamauchi.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Harmon. Now let's take the other man first.
The fight is for tomorrow, guys. We start off tomorrow with a fight, which is normally, normally when I start my stream, we hear a few words and then the judge takes a 15-minute break. Tomorrow, we start a fight. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thanks for coming out today. I really appreciate it. I'll see you all again real soon. Bye, everybody.